表面上看来，我们生活周遭很多人有心理疾病，这是从哪里来的？精神科医师的精神失调诊断与统计手册可以把地球上的每一个人都贴上标签。
Psychiatrists, I believe, they look at every human being and they divide humans into two classes: clients and potential clients.
We see this no more prevalent in any field than in the field of the mental disorders, where one disease after another is invented and then popularized, and the public is made to worry about it.
It's a disease mongering. It's the selling of sickness. You know, sometimes it's a drug in search of a market, and it's giving public awareness to minor conditions with the ultimate goal is to sell more medications. It's not caring for people.
When you run out of symptoms, you don't have any more clientele to market to. So you have to invent disease. And with psychiatric medications, you can invent diseases all day long. Look at human variation.
Everyday things like shyness, sadness, or even situational depressions like grieving, postpartum depression, they all become studied and prescriptions start to get written for these drugs.
Before these drugs were introduced in the market, people who had these conditions would not have been given any drug at all. And so it is the branding of a disease, and it is the branding of a drug for the treatment of a disease that did not exist before the industry made the disease.
例如，害羞这个常见的情况被精神科医师投票表决，放进他们的精神失调诊断及统计手册，属于社交性焦虑失调。
You know, people are nervous. Well, they come up with, say, social anxiety disorder. SAD, they'll call it SAD.
And the connotation is that everybody ought to be happy and that here's a drug that can make you happy. So that a common occurrence, which is every now and again everybody's sad, we ought to be treating with a drug.
Well, then they'll get this PR firm to drum up business for this. They'll put out all these studies that find, you know, there's so many people afflicted with this SAD, you know, and they'll start putting it in magazines, they'll start putting it on TV, they'll start a patient advocacy group that say, you know, that we're all affected by this, and then they'll come out with Paxil works for this. So they go to the FDA and they said, well, we ran this study and this works for this new invented disorder. And that is SAD, social anxiety disorder. And millions of people suffer from it. And it's purely fictional. It's a normal human emotion that everybody experiences at certain times or another, but they make it into a disease.
Paxil, once it got approved by the FDA as the first antidepressant to be used for social anxiety, it took off huge. And it just moved from number 3 in the market amongst its peer drugs to number 1 in the market.
社交性焦虑失调只是众多虚构出来的精神疾病之一，它刺激了精神科用药风气。
Psychiatrists work to promote what the latest disease is going to be. These days, bipolar is getting that same type of promotion.
Everybody's being educated about their bipolar illness, when in fact, we know having emotional ups and downs is distinctly human.
Now bipolar is thrown around like water. You've got bipolar, I have bipolar. If I'm up today, I'm manic. If I go home tonight and I'm depressed because I'm tired, that shows I have bipolar disease. It's a lot of hokum.
Yeah, I see a lot of things on television about bipolar.
Bipolar? You know, they talk about bipolar a lot.
My oldest son was diagnosed with bipolar.
Bipolar, I've known a lot of bipolar.
2 friends from both of them were like diagnosed with bipolar.
Some people I know that are bipolar.
My neighbor, she was bipolar. I was diagnosed with bipolar.
My mother had bipolar.
He was actually bipolar.
Schizophrenic bipolar, bipolar and obsessive compulsive,
bipolar and ADHD,
bipolar disorder, bipolar, yeah,
bipolar situation, bipolar,
bipolar,
bipolar, bipolar,
bipolar.
There are 3 personality disorders, and then the most recent is bipolar, and that's just been in the past year.
精神科医师约瑟夫·彼得曼是让躁郁症普及化的始作俑者，尤其对儿童。他是25家药厂的专业讲师， 顾问以及研究员。
In 1996, the drug companies funneled all this money to this Dr. Biederman. He's well known. He's the one that came up and said that there's bipolar disorder in little kids. This was unheard of. There was no bipolar disorder in any kids. He came up with the study and published the articles out all over the world, and other doctors followed his lead that bipolar is in little kids.
由于毕德曼博士和他的同僚持续宣传，从1994年以来，儿童被诊断患有躁郁症已经增加了4000%。同时，开给儿童精神病的处方用药已经跃升5倍，据估计，开立高达250万个处方。2008年，美国参议院的一项调查揭露，毕德曼医师没有申报个人从制药厂所得的160万美金，但是伤害已经造成了。由于毕德曼医师创造躁郁症的热潮，因此抗精神病药物成了精神科医师的首选。这可是药性很强的精神治疗药物。治疗精神病最畅销的前3种药物，每分钟共赚进25000美金。不管治疗精神病的药物工业有多么庞大，许多精神科医师仍持续努力诊断，让它更强大。
Let's say this is the pie right here of a certain class of medications, and this is a pretty profitable pie, and everybody wants a piece of that pie. But what would happen if we made that pie even bigger? And how you make the pie even bigger is by expanding the uses for those drugs.
They've already got a drug that's approved on the shelf. They can just pull it off the shelf, and rename it, repackage it, and say, look, we've got a new drug for a new illness.
When Prozac's patent ran out, that Eli Lilly had to look for a new source of profits. So all they did was change the name of the drug from Prozac to Serafem, changed the color of the pill from green to pink, and marketed it for PMDD, which was newly introduced into this book.
What it tells us is that if you can come up with a label, a diagnostic label for a drug, then you can sell it like hotcakes.
It's a business model, and it's $1 billion business model, and it works, and it's going to keep continuing.
今天，任何人都可能不知情地服用各种重新命名、重新包装或拿到不是精神科用途的精神科药物。像治疗抽烟的处方用药 Zyban 乃烟肽，实际上是抗忧郁剂 Wellbutrin。Zynbota 千忧解是治疗沮丧和焦虑的精神科药物，现在称为 Yantrip， 销售给尿失禁的人。精神科的研究者把治疗精神异常的药物拿来广泛测试很多不同的状况，例如肥胖、酗酒、赌博、热潮红、疱疹、恶心、痒、战斗、过度拔头发。一颗药丸用于治疗每一种疾病，但实际上没人被告知精神科药物有多危险。
As a chemist, I'm making these drugs. They're proving deadly in our labs, and they're proving deadly in other labs. Dangerous, ineffective, causing the exact same thing they're supposed to treat. How are they selling them?
For anyone who's given a label of a psychotic illness, drugs seem to be the automatic choice of treatments as night follows day.
That's all psychiatry does. It's dominated by psychopharmacologists who do nothing but manage symptoms by dispensing pills. That's it. And they don't work. But the fact that they don't work works to the advantage of the drug companies and the psychiatrists, which means that you're not cured, which means that you're a patient for life, you're a customer, you're a client for life. And the worse your health gets, the more drugs you need. It's a great deal for them.
We should all be up in arms about the way we're being treated by psychiatry today. This is a very dangerous industry that has gone so far overboard in inventing fictitious diseases and drugging our children and our population that I consider it to be engaged in crimes against humanity.
由于精神科药物一年的商机超过800亿美金，因此今日的社会很难逃脱无孔不入的精神疾病宣传。但是在行销背后潜藏着的秘密，会使精神科的顾客知道以后感到震惊。这些药物是怎么测试的？ 他们安全吗？